Buongiorno a tutte e tutti. Good morning, everyone. We're here today with... Siamo qui oggi con Maryam Mashaie. È la direttrice Data Science and Information Solutions per Global Affairs Canada. She's the Director of Data Science and Information Solution at Global Affairs Canada. The interview will be in English. I will direct you some questions, Maryam, about your role in the government of Canada and your expertise. So I think it will be important for us in Italy and in Europe more in general to hear about your work and your perspective on what's going on with AI and regulations. I will start from your role. So I will be curious to know what is the job of a director of data science and information solutions for a big government, and also maybe what are your main duties? So what is your day like, and how widespread are roles like yours in Canada?
Grazie, Diletta. Thank you very much for being here. Good morning, bon matin, buongiorno a tutti. Very happy to be here. And to answer your question, yes, I am the Director of Data Science and Information Solutions at Global Affairs Canada. I'm very privileged to be in that role. It is such an amazing time to be in that role. So what do I do at Global Affairs and in terms of the data science and AI space? Well, from my perspective and speaking with many of my peers, what we do is making sure at a high level we are strategically set up to make sure the government of Canada is aligned with the way forward in terms of AI, from a technology perspective, from a governance perspective, and making sure that we in our department have the right people within the team that report directly up to me that can carry that vision forward, and making sure we have the right technical people, but the right people with the policy mindset, but as well people that are very comfortable to discuss with people that are not familiar with the space to understand what it means and what the implications of using AI and emerging technologies and non-AI technologies mean for them as we move forward towards the future of diplomacy and international relations and using this technology for its benefits.
I think that's really interesting because, first of all, it's not about AI, as we were discussing previously. So your role and your team is not like focused exclusively on AI, which you were telling me is something relatively new. There's so much more other than AI with technology and government. So maybe you can give us a couple of examples of what are the systems or technologies that you work on?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So my role, my directorship is within the IT realm. So of course, our profile of the people that we hire certainly must have an IT background, very important, and a math background. So of course we have the traditional tools like Python, R, but also knowing the new emerging technologies in the cloud space. So making sure that we're well informed in that space, but also being very cognizant of it's always a learning process. So new technologies are being put in the landscape, in technology in general, but in AI more so, and being aware of that and keeping a pulse on it. But it's also at the same time very important that we have people that are also a little bit more generalists as well within the team that can understand our technology but can translate it out to people that are outside of IT that want to benefit from the amazing potential of technology and decision making and AI if it's appropriate and fit for purpose for them. So it's not always true that you need AI. Maybe you can get by with traditional if then else in terms of a decision tree. And that's a lot of where our policies started off with pre-Gen AI hype that were focused on non-AI technologies first. So having that foundation in technology and understanding is very important, and making sure when the message is transmitted out to people outside of our team, within our department or other government departments, that there's this awareness of that not everything is AI, but we will certainly look at a best option for what you need.
I want and need to stress that again. So this is very important, I think. So there are many other technologies, not necessarily AI, but also maybe we don't even need it. So the first thing that maybe you're also up to is to consider the options and assess the situation, the context, and see whether you actually need it, because that's something that is a bit overlooked nowadays, because there's a lot of push for it. Gen AI now because it's the last trend, but also AI just before it, and other solutions to public administrations and to the government, to just say, we are in the wave now, so the government needs to be innovative and needs to adopt it. But even if sometimes it's not even the case that government needs it. So I think that's really important. I was also curious, to bridge it a bit with the situation that we have in Italy. We don't have that many roles in the government level, but in general in the central national public administrations with a technical background that can also have this kind of other expertises in the team that make the bridge with the outside, which I think is really important. So I was curious to know how you rate the balance or imbalance in terms of gender gap in the tech sector, or more specifically in the tech sector within the public space in Canada.
Yeah, that's a great question. From my own personal experience and observations is that I've always felt very comfortable in IT technology space. I maybe naively didn't look at it in terms of a gender, man, woman, ethnicity, background. I just saw the interest and the connection I made with people in this space. As I progressed in my career, I did notice that there were maybe people pointed out that there were less women in this space. And I went, if we're looking at it from a lens of employment and equity, as we do in Canada, there are 4 employment equity groups. So women, visible minorities, Aboriginals or First Nations in Canada, as well as people with disabilities. So we look at it not just from an exclusively women lens, but a diverse inclusion and diversity lens.
Intersectional.
Absolutely. So in terms of from a woman perspective I think we need to be asking ourselves the question, why is it that we don't see women in that space? Is it because we're not attracting them in the universities? When they want to pursue higher education, is it something that is not being done properly in the recruitment campaign? If not, well then maybe we need to look at it from a career perspective. Is there something in there that maybe when they choose to pursue education versus family, is there support that we can provide? But also, I believe that maybe personally for my duty is that in order to attract women and have them come into technology, what can I do from my perspective is maybe being there as a role model to say, listen, if I can do it, then maybe think about it and you can too. So the potential and the opportunities are there, and let's see how we can make it happen together. And sometimes just seeing that person there makes a difference for people to think about, maybe I can too. But I've been very, very supported by my own management as well, who are men who I believe don't see me as a woman to say we need to promote that woman. This person has talent and we're going to bring them in because they add value. And that's how I see the whole landscape.
Yeah, that's great. And I also like a lot the perspective on diversity in general, right? That is not only a gender thing, but it's much more than that. Speaking of perspectives, I wanted to go back because I think it's important, this topic of skills that you want to engage in this space in information solutions, also may be of inspiration for other people in Italy that are talking with us. So what are the skills that you think are most important in order to, also with a lens of governance and not necessarily only the technical part in this kind of space?
That's a great question. I think with the launch of AI and how everyone's talking about it, that's certainly given me a reason to pause and think what's important. So it helps to have a technology background to understand what these, algorithms mean and the implications of them. When you have that background, then you can more easily explain how a policy should be formulated. From what I understand, in the past, potentially policy was more written by people in the social sciences or not in the technical realm. But in this AI space, it seems that the people that are writing the policies are also the people that are doing the technology part. So what's very interesting and fascinating with Canada is that the leaders in this space of AI, so we have from the Mila Institute, Dr. Yoshio Bengio, we have Richard Sutton at the University of Alberta, we have Dr. Hinton, Jeffrey Hinton from the Vector Institute in Toronto. They were leaders in the technology space, but it was very interesting how they were able to pivot and provide information from a non-technical perspective on the ethics and bias and implications to society and using AI, which is so fascinating to me. It becomes very multidisciplinary and not siloed skill set to be part of the conversation to form the way forward in terms of directive, policy, and regulation now. So very vast, but what's also important is being able to talk from an influence perspective, and these are the perspectives that I have, and these are perspectives that you have, and how can we come together to decide together for the good of society as we move forward in this technology.
That's great. Since you mentioned ethics and regulation, which is what interests me the most, I wanted to ask you, so I was briefly telling you before this interview started about a couple of cases and scandals that we had in Europe that are regarded, they're connected with not AI necessarily, but with, again, data analysis, information solutions, and automated decision making. So I know that Canada was one of the first countries in the world to regulate automated decision making. So I would be curious to know a bit more about this, why you decided to do it before, this hype came up. And also, maybe it's a bigger interest to know if it was related with something that happened at the social level in Canada. So it was inspired by a specific case, or it was just, a prevention norm?
That's a good question. I guess I'd like to preface my answer by saying I'm certainly no expert in policy, directive, and regulation. And I fell into it a little bit because this is what I needed to know to be able to do my job effectively as a leader in the Government of Canada to represent. So the Canada's directive on automated decision making, if my memory serves me well, came out in 2019. And what prompted that specifically, I can't tell you for sure, but I can tell you that the Government of Canada certainly, from what I can see, is proactive in making sure that we do have the proper guidelines and directives in place to be able to guide our government departments and private sector on the values and ethics that Canadians as a society believe makes sense to protect us from the social good perspective. So the directive outlines making sure there's transparency, making sure there's no bias, making sure that we're always keeping a human in the loop of automated decision making. And that's just the way that I find we've always approached things and seems to be the natural way of doing things. Injected into that is what I find very interesting is the algorithmic impact assessment, which is actually a tool that helps mitigate risk. So nothing is risk-free, but at least putting in place a risk mitigation strategy is very important in any aspect. So it certainly is not particular to the AI domain, but in 2019, we weren't talking about Gen AI the way that we are now. We were talking about decision trees, which are based in if-then-else statements. So we always should be looking at any kind of decision-making or any product or application that we push out that uses AI, Gen AI or not, a human has to be part of the loop to make sure it makes sense. And Canada, just from my observation, is more careful and cautious, and maybe some people might say risk averse, to make sure that we do the right thing. It could take a bit more time, but we do it and plan it out for the greater good of society, and hopefully partnering with our Five Eyes and G7 countries to collaborate. And I'm seeing that happen, and it's absolutely amazing.
Wow, it's so nice to hear about this because, we were saying that maybe it has to do a lot with Canadian culture to have this kind of, mitigation strategy even before something is applied. And I can see it also from what you said before about, maybe we don't even need it. We have to be sure before implementing something that's, first of all, needed. That it's useful for us. So how can we measure the utility for it, and also that it's developed in the best possible way. So this is not. This is a big thing for us. So we have been pushing in Italy both as a civil society and I do it in my research and also in my company to say that risk assessments are the only possible way that we can address and govern AI systems and automated decision making and decision trees in general today, because it's not of course it has to do with the technical side and part too, but it has a lot to do with the humans and the human choices that are involved in this kind of projects. So how do we do it? And the level of automation that it's inside it is not even the most important thing, because many things can go wrong with only a decision tree or with an Excel file if there is no human governance behind it. So just a side note on this, because I think it's an important context. We just had the AI Act passed from the European Commission and Parliament and Council. So it was actually approved by the Council of Europe 2 days ago. So it also had, the check and the okay from the human rights perspective. And that's important because speaking of human rights, the AI Act also includes now in this final and approved version a FRAIA, which is a fundamental rights impact assessment that will be required for public administrations that develop and implement high-risk systems. So that's something that is coming in Europe too, and luckily we'll have this because I personally think that it's the only possible way to have a strategy and a culture of prevention, and that we can do many things with technology and AI, but we also have to assess and contextualize it within society. So my last question for you would be how and why it is important to govern these technologies from the beginning. So what can go wrong if you do it just at the end, for example, or if you don't have this culture of prevention from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel that it's not just an AI perspective, but it even more so now is that planning and having these discussions earlier on helps to mitigate risk and have a foresight to what potentially could happen. So protecting yourself or your country or people lives is really at the forefront of these things. So early planning certainly is necessary, and making sure the right people around the table to engage and identifying collaboratively what the high risks are meant to be. So I think it's absolutely important to, especially now in this realm where the technology is very accessible to many people in many domains and on our phones and devices, is that early planning certainly helps. And writing the playbook as we're playing the game, as they say, or as we say, it's important to keep pulse on it and not wait till the end, because if you wait to the end, you're going to have blind spots that you didn't account for, and you have to go back in your systems and update. Do it up front. It might take some time more in the beginning, but the dividends will pay off at the end. So absolutely, we should be working collaboratively up front, and I look forward to what the future, the near-term future lies in this space.
Thank you, Maryam. I think that's a very good lesson and, example for us to be guided from is also in Italy. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup. Plaisir d'être avec vous.